Hello, 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 my podcast people, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of my favorite podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you saw me just look over to the side because you don't hear this part, but before I start the episode, I clap. It allows me to sync up the audio and the video in post-production when I'm doing the editing. But Rupert's in here today, and so the clap, I was like, did it wake him up? Did it startle him? Yes. It did. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for joining. If you're listening on the podcast and whatever your favorite player is, thank you for tuning in. Y'all are the best. So if you're listening, watching on the day that this drops, it is Monday, October 7th. Hello, October. Hello, October. Where September went, don't know. But either way, get your PSLs because we already know Starbucks is about to be rushing you away from fall and they're going to start selling that gross peppermint drink. I did actually have a PSL this past week. Was it actually? Now that I think about it, I'm like, wait, what did Lex order? I didn't drink much of it. We haven't gone to Starbucks in like forever, namely because I got the espresso machine and like that's all we do is I make all kinds of drinks now. But either way, it was like really sweet, and I was like, I don't really want this, but we'll say that I had mine for the season. But today we are talking about how to get invited to speak on stages, how to get invited to speak at conferences. And one of the things that inspired this episode is a little announcement that I'm gonna give you right now. The conference that Jill and I are hosting this week. So if you are like super last minute Lucy, this announcement is for you. BossUp 2024, it is going down this Thursday and Friday, October 10th and 11th in Redondo Beach, California. BossUp is the in-person event that Jill and I host. I want to say annually, but it's not annually. But it is specifically for female online business owners who want to grow their business and perhaps more importantly, and my favorite part, deepen their impact. I have been talking about this event for a zillion episodes now, and I have episodes that are specifically dedicated to it. So I actually want to keep this promo very short. And I'm doing this promo in general, right? Largely because I stay preaching about send the last email, right? Send the proverbial last email. And this is the last official announcement I'm going to give before the actual event. And it is my belief that if you were to not know about the event, and I didn't do everything I could to let you know about the event, then I'm at blame. I'm at fault. I'm at blame. Wow. I'm at fault. So I'm doing everything I can to let you know about it. And I say this because I went to an event a few years ago, 2022, and I hadn't heard anything about it until it was like very close to the end. And I was like, but that was because they didn't talk about it a lot. And I was like, that is not good marketing. But I don't want to be that person. So letting you know, all the deets are in the show notes, the link in the show notes. So go check that out. We'd love to have you. DM me if you got questions. Text me 310-737-2345 if you got questions. Love to answer them. All right. One more announcement. It's not even an announcement. One more update because I'm really excited about it. And then we'll hop into the episode. Lex and I did go to Miami. So if you listen to last Monday's episode, I was talking about that we might be going. It was very last minute planning. And because I record this. So I record the episodes on Monday and then it goes out the following Monday. So we recorded that episode on Monday and then we actually flew out on Thursday. And we were kind of thinking about going and there was a hurricane, in case you didn't know. And so we were I was tracking it and kind of seeing everything with that and seeing if it was going to be bad in Miami. One, it was not really supposed to be bad in Miami, but we had to fly there. And I was like, is the storm going to be passed? What's going to happen? And it ended up being passed. And so we took a late flight out on Thursday. Our flight got delayed an hour and a half, which was actually a really good thing because that meant that we flew behind the storm. We got in Thursday night. We stayed until Sunday night. The weather was amazing. Like I really want this to become an annual thing. We went for a volleyball tournament. It's called King and Queen of the Court. It's a different format than the traditional play, and it's so much fun. I love Miami. I love the weather. I love the food. Lex had never been there. It was a phenomenal trip. We used points, so like basically it feels like it's free. And it was just so good. So we did go. If you follow me on Insta, you saw. It feels weird saying Insta. If you follow me on social media, aka Instagram, then you saw that we went. But here's your sign to book that last minute trip. Okay? Hint, hint. Come to BossUp. All right, so on to today's topic, which is how to get invited to speak on stages and speak at conferences. The cliff notes here, the spoiler. Yes, you can absolutely just ask, but it is all about who you know and what you're bringing to the table, right? I will straight up say that the dark side of this kind of what you're bringing to the table for many conferences translates into, do you have a big following? Why? Because most of these conferences are trying to at least not lose money. ideally they want to make money, but they're trying not to lose money. And so they need to fill the seats, right? So they want to invite people that have big followings, and hopefully that carries over into people signing up, right, and paying to attend. Side note, if you're listening to this and you are the one thinking about putting on an event, don't spend $1 zillion fucking dollars to do it. Use math, right? Start small and then grow. Selling out a 10-person event is dope as hell, right? Start with that. Right? There's a big point here that I don't discuss this in the rest. I'm not going to discuss this in the rest of the episode because I've already outlined it. And there just wasn't like a space to put this. So we're going to put it right here, which is don't be afraid, obviously, to start small, but more than that, don't be afraid to build your own stage. So right now we're speaking about how to get invited to be on stages. And one of the places that can start is you making your own stage, right? This could be, starts with social media. Like that is a stage, that is a platform. And then from there, maybe you host an in-person event. It's a retreat. It's a single day event. I have a former client who did it at her house. Like, yes, that's awesome. It can absolutely start like that. So if you're thinking about how do I get invited, absolutely listen to the rest of the episode, but also think about how do I build my own stage, and do I want to build my own stage, right? So back to the big 2 points, which I said before, where it comes down to who you know and what are you bringing to the table. In an ideal world, an ideal situation, that translates into who respects you and believes that you could bring a lot of value to the audience. Right? And yes, the value is going to be, related to and relative to the audience. So you may be like really good at what you do, but it's just like not at all related to what this audience is. So like it doesn't make sense to invite you, right? So it's not that you as a person aren't valuable, but like how can you help that audience? I will forever be thankful to my girl Molly Galbraith of Girls Gone Strong. We brought her on the podcast before. Courtney, if you clicked that episode, thank you. She's the one that got me onto the Raise the Bar stage. From what I understand, I think she basically gave them an ultimatum and was like, yo, we need to diversify this and we need different voices. And I got someone that, to recommend and suggest, and I'm not speaking unless you diversify this and we hear from different voices. And I've spoken at that conference for 3 years in a row. But that was because of Molly, right? So check her out. If you don't, my guess is you know her because she's Molly. But check her out. We'll link that episode, we'll link her socials and everything like that. But the action items for this first part, right, of getting invited, which is the who you know, right? I think there's 3 things you can look at here, things you can do. Number 1 is obviously develop that network. And when I say network, I don't mean like in the gross, grimy way and networking in the gross, grimy way. Y'all know I love that book, The Go-Giver. And in The Go-Giver, they talk about a network and they kind of reframe it. And loosely what they say is that it's a group of people who want to see you do well and who you want to see do well. Love it. That means it's founded in building genuine relationships. And that's what we want, right? So to that end, this aspect of who you know, right, one of the action items here, is not a gross thing. It's literally build relationships with people. Develop that network of people who you want to help, people who you want to see succeed. And conversely, people who want to see you succeed, people who want to help you. I did a whole entire episode about networking. Courtney, if you could link that as well, thank you. All right, so the second action item here for that who you know side of things is consider asking people, right? So yes, you can obviously pitch yourself to be a speaker at something. Sean Pastucci is doing this right now and trying to become a speaker. He wants to do a TEDx talk. But you can ask your friends to help you out, to connect you with people. So I spoke at ConvertKit's Craft and Commerce a few years back. And that was absolutely because I mentioned it to Claire Pelletreau, who we've brought on the podcast. She's phenomenal. And she mentioned it to Alexis Tyke Miller. We were actually all sitting at a table and she was like, Alexis, do you know Shantae? She'd be a great speaker to have here. And I had met Claire the year before and we just stayed in touch and, we helped each other out, building that network, right? Building those relationships. I had also befriended Barrett Brooks. He worked at ConvertKit at the time and I had pitched myself to him. That sounds weird, but I had pitched to talk to him. And, all those things came together and I got to speak at ConvertKit, right? And also they could see what I was bringing to the table because of all the stuff on social media. But that who all you listening to this, how much weight that carries, right? How much weight a referral carries when you're looking for someone, you're looking for a dentist, you're looking for a doctor. You go to your friends first. You're like, hey, can you recommend someone, right? So circling back to Alexis, she actually left ConvertKit and works for Circle. And she asked me to keynote their online summit a few months back. Right? Again, this is who you know and what you bring to the table, because she needed someone with energy to motivate online business owners. That's like, was literally, she's like, I immediately thought of you, right? Because we have a relationship now, right? There's that network component. She knows me. And then that second part, which is she knows what I'm bringing to the table because she's already heard me speak. So number 3 here, so 3 action items for this part of the equation that is who you know, is to be a key maker, not a gatekeeper. So Molly is the epitome of this. And that's an Arlen Hamilton quote. But Molly is the epitome of this. This is exactly what she did, right? She went and recommended me to them. So I'm going to suggest that you do the same thing, right? Ask if people are looking for people to speak at a conference, and then recommend your people. And so this is kind of like, especially if you've been asked to speak, if you've been asked to be on a podcast, right? Then look to pay that forward, if you will. I do this every podcast episode that I'm on. Not because I expect it to come back to me, but because it's a kind and helpful thing to do. And I've been on the receiving end of that. And I'm like, dude, I want to put that energy out into the world. So anytime I get asked to be on a podcast, I go on the podcast and then I ask them at the end, like, hey, is there anyone that I know that I can connect you with? And I think it is the go-giver laws. It is that, put out into the ecosystem, put out into the ether, put out into the universe what you would like to see there. And if you get it back, that's great. But that's not the only reason, to do it. So those are the 3 action items for that first half of, the who you know side of things. The second part of that equation is what you're bringing to the table. So 3 parts here, 3 action items. Number 1, be fucking good at what you do. Be a master at your craft. Be a master of your craft. Right? People want to invite people who are good at what they're doing because it provides value to the audience. Ideally, the person hosting this conference does care about the audience and does care that the audience has a good experience. And so they want to bring people who are really good at what they do. Right? Second part with this is be able to get people results. So that's kind of twofold within that. Being able to get people results in the thing that you do, just in your general day-to-day, in your general business, but also when you go and speak. I have been to a lot of conferences and a lot of people suck. I'm just going to say it. They suck at speaking, and not because they're bad speakers, but because the stuff they're presenting isn't helpful. And not everyone who is good at, having an online presence is a good speaker. Like, these are 2 different skills. So if you need help with that, nope, not me. Sorry, that sounds weird. If you need help with that, no, not me. Don't hire me to help you with that. I'm going to suggest my guy, Mike. I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I will have... Courtney, I will send that to you, and then you can link that in the show notes. But he was the speaker coach for ConvertKit. So this is what he does. He is a speaker coach. So if you want help with that side of things, hire someone to help you. This way you can be truly valuable to that audience, not just because of the things you know, but what they actually learn, right? Because it's not about what you know, it's what you learn that matters. Point number 2 here is to share what you know. Right? There is a trend right now that's going on social media, and I'm already sick of it. It just started, I'm fucking sick of it. And the trend is, it's like a reel that you make that it says, I'm tired of making content, just hire me for the thing that I do, or hire me for what I do. It's nonsense, it's bullshit. Making content that shows people what you do is how you get people to hire you, right? It's try before you buy, it's test before you invest. So share everything, right? How are people going to know what you're bringing to the table unless you show them what you're bringing to the table? So yes, that word of mouth thing, it trumps everything else, right? If someone vouches for you and they're like, hey, yeah, this person's like really good at this. But the second part is they're going to be like, what can you do? What do you like? Right? What is your expertise in? Share that everywhere. And the easiest, lowest hanging fruit to start off with is going to be your social media. And then the third part here of how to demonstrate what you're bringing to the table is if you ever do get the opportunity to be on a stage, whether that's a virtual conference, speaking to someone's group, or an actual stage, bring the fucking noise. Have your shit together and bring the fucking noise, right? Bring down the house, whatever the phrase is, right? Be fucking awesome when you give that presentation. In terms of growth from this, right? Very, specifically, easy to understand here is that people who host conferences go to conferences, and also people who attend conferences go to conferences. Meaning, when you're speaking, there's people in the audience that host conferences, and those hosts see you and they're like, hey, you crushed here. They invite you to speak at their event. That's absolutely how I got asked to speak at Raise the Bar. Real Coaches Summit. So I was speaking at Raise the Bar. Aram was at that conference, and then he asked me to speak at the Real Coaches Summit, right? Additionally, like I said, the people in the audience, most of these people, there's overlap. Like people, is a certain type of person that really likes to go to conferences, and oftentimes they go to multiple conferences. And so you have them at one, and they meet you, and they hear from you, and they're like, oh, I want to go hear this person again. We do it with music, right? Where you hear someone, and you're like, I want to go to their conference again. I want to go to their conference over there. Their conference, wow. Their, what is it called? I'm totally blanking. Concert. Wow. I want to go to their concert there. I want to go. I've heard Chris Stapleton play like 5 times now. All over. Love him. Right? So the 3 folks that we are bringing in to speak at BossUp, they have both of these things, right? We know them very well. I, in particular, know them very well. And they have shown time and time again that they can bring so much value to anyone who's willing to listen, any audience that's willing to listen. All right, so we are bringing in Rachel Strickland, who we've had on the podcast, Dr. Uchenna Osai, who we've had on the podcast, and Dr. Jennifer Hutton, who's also been on the podcast, all very good friends of mine. And so there's that first part of the relationships. Who do you know? We know them. And what are you bringing to the table? And they're bringing fucking everything to the table. So as it relates to BossUp, the goal of BossUp is to help female online business owners learn how to do business in a way that feels good for them and a way that feels good for their people. As it relates to the actual strategy and tactics side of online business, Jill and I got that covered. We had it unlocked. That's what we're going to be focused on. As for the personal growth side, the personal development side of things, that is what we're bringing the speakers in for. And we know they can deliver on that because I've seen their work. I've been privy to their work. I've brought them in for other things. I've heard their work. I've seen it on social. Listen to the podcast episodes they've been on. I know what they can do. I'm part of Rachel's Patreon. I know what she can do. I know what they all can do. I've heard UC speak a bunch of times. I worked with Dr. I almost said Dr. Rachel. I meant to say with Dr. Jennifer. I know what they can bring. One thing that was super important for Jill and I want to state this because just kind of you can take away a lot of things from this episode, whether you are looking to get asked to speak or you're going to host your own, was when we asked the speakers if they would want to participate in this and want to speak. We specifically said that they wouldn't have to promote the event, right? Yes, it's nice if your speakers promote the event, but honestly, it's annoying as a speaker to be expected to fill someone else's event, right? In the beginning, when you first start getting invited to speak at things, it's really cool, but as your business and life goes on, it is a lot, right? Because you have a full-ass schedule, you have a life, you have a family, you have a business you're running, and then you have to take time away from that to go travel, to go and put this talk together, to be on, have this energy at the place, and it becomes a lot. And then to be expected on top of that to go and market this and write emails, like that's way too much. So we did not ask them to market anything. If they wanted to, awesome, but we didn't ask them that. And then we also are paying them. All right, we're paying for their flight, we're paying for their hotel, we're paying for transportation, their food, and we're giving them $500 speaker fee. It's not much, but it is $500 more than literally any other health and fitness conference out there. Like again, like I said in the beginning of this, it is not some lucrative thing to be speaking on stages. Most conferences do not pay. I'll be the first to say my zone of genius is not in how to be a professional speaker, and that is a thing. But for what I'm guessing the majority of you listening to this are looking to do and looking to get started, it's this more organic approach at speaking at these types of stages and these types of places that you have gone to. And I'm going to let you know, like, you're not getting paid very much. So all that to say, if you're listening around the edges, if you're hosting an event, pay your speakers. If you are looking to speak at an event, understand that it is not necessarily some super lucrative thing, which doesn't mean you should not do it. And it doesn't mean that things are, that's like, so I'm tripling over my words. It is not a super lucrative thing, but that is not to say that you can't make money at these gigs and doing this. Like, yes, there are people that do this, but again, for those of you listening to this, my guess is that you're thinking about trying to speak at the conferences that you've attended, and 99% of those are not paying the people to speak. Okay. So the zoomed out thing, like I said, is while I have no expertise on, how to turn speaking into a career, it can be done. But understand that it's an entirely different skill set, namely one that involves pitching and negotiations, which is not at all something that I at all enjoy, right? Which is why I didn't have this episode title, How to Pitch Yourself for a Speaking Event. This was how to get asked to speak. And a lot of times when you're getting asked, you're probably also not getting paid, right? So just think about that. I do truly think that it is an honor to be asked to speak, and I don't take that lightly. And this is something that I did chase for a few years, and I caught it, and which is why I'm doing this episode, and I can speak from the other side of things. Now it's not something that I desire so much. Like I said earlier, it is a lot to leave your home and go fly and go stay at a place and be on and talk to all the attendees, because like when you're there, and it is great. And if you've ever been in a conference and we've been there together, I'm glad that if you came up to me and we spoke, I'm fucking so glad about that. But it is also a lot, right? I've said this a bunch of times. I'm hugely introverted, right? So, I said yes to the recent CPTA gig because it was same day, in and out flight. They did not pay. But I really did feel like I could have an impact on that audience. And I was pretty sure that they were going to get something different from me as opposed to a lot of the other speakers. And I know that I didn't have that example when I was a student. I didn't have that example when I was practicing earlier on. And that is why I said yes, right? So all that to say, that last part is ask yourself why you want to be on stage, right? It's also, super important to dissect this and sit with it for a little bit, because it will impact what you say yes to and what you say no to. If you're like, I want to get my message out there, I like being on stage, I like have the energy and feeding off that energy of the audience, I like inspiring people, I want this kind of more scaled model there just to get my ideas out there, amazing. You'll probably say yes to a lot more things. And that's why I said yes to those things before, because I was like, I just want to be on this stage, I just want to talk, I love it. What I did find though is I also so strongly champion action. And one of the toughest things with a live event is that I don't know what you're doing after it. If I work with you for 6 weeks, if we work together one-on-one, right, if you're in the intensive, if you're in the lecture mind, if you're in legacy, I know that you're taking action because we're working together. When I'm on stage, I don't know. It's a hope. And that's fine for a lot of people, right? Where you're just like, hey, I'm going to talk to you, and then it's on you. There's nothing wrong with that. And I can sit with that for something like CPTA, right, and giving those talks. But to give a lot of my time for something like that, where I didn't know if people were doing the thing and I couldn't hold them accountable, that was really tough for me. And so that's why I was like, I'm good with speaking on stages. I don't feel the need to do that to get my message out. I have the channels now. I'm talking to you folks, right? I got my podcast. We have the YouTube version of things going up. I have social media. I have my email list, and I really like speaking and communicating via that. So ask yourself why you want to do this. There are no wrong answers, right? Again, it's just, there's no wrong answers. There's no this is wrong, this is right. There's just your answers. The reason I want you to ask yourself the question is because it will help influence and guide what you say yes to, what you say no to. Again, that this is not a super lucrative thing. This is not to say that, 5-figure speaking gigs isn't a thing, but for the most part, people who are getting those 5-figure, 4-figure, any figure speaking gigs, they have that second part, which is what do you bring into the table, and they're bringing a big audience. So there's some famous author or some famous travel blogger or whatever. They have a big audience. They're someone that people want to hear from. And so people are paying a pretty penny to get these people to speak. Last part here, and then I'll wrap it up. You can also, if you get asked, you can also ask for a speaker fee and be like, yes, and I will say, who actually, I'm remiss if I didn't say this, Allison Tenney always pays her speakers. She's phenomenal with that. Allison does a really good job of taking care of her speakers. So let that be known. But yeah, you can ask for a speaker fee, right? It's not to say that you have to accept nothing. That's on you, right? That's up to you. But I do want to put it out there that speaking doesn't guarantee some lucrative thing. isn't, some lucrative paycheck. Oftentimes they will reimburse you, right, for your flight, like your travel. They'll pay for the hotel. That's the easiest one because it's already on their thing. You have to put a card down for incidentals. But like they've already paid for the hotel. They'll reimburse you for your travel there. They'll reimburse you for food, but like you do have to pay up front and then they will reimburse you. So just some things to keep in mind. I want to pull back the curtain. It is a phenomenal opportunity to be able to speak on a stage, to speak at a conference. Absolutely. But just want to put some context around it, give you a little information. If you got more questions, by all means, hit me up. Okay? Looking at the time, we're going to wrap this up here. Summary, if you're looking to speak on stages and you're wondering how to get invited to speak, how to get invited to speak at conferences, yes, you can absolutely ask. But it all comes down to who do you know and what are you bringing to the table? Okay? All right. Don't forget, if you're a super last minute Lucy, BossUp is going down this Thursday and Friday. This week, we got 3 bomb-ass guest speakers. All right. All the info is in the link in the show notes. All right? All right. As always, endlessly appreciative for every single one of you. Until next time, friends, Maestro out.